Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. We are of course doing our August wrap up today. I read 11 books in August, one of which was 1,258 pages. So we have a lot to wrap up today. Let's just get straight into it. For our breakdown of books that we read, out of those 11, 5 were fantasy, 1 was sci-fi, I read 2 romances, and then 3 like either general or literary fictions. For the August TBR, I did in fact read 5 out of 5, finished the monthly TBR of course. Those books were The Viscount Who Loved Me, 3 Shattered Souls, The Compound, The Way of Kings, and Passion Project. So checked all those off the list. And just going straight in for the first one, this was my chunky book of the month, and that was, of course, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. All of you came on this journey with me as I read this book in a reading vlog this month. We're also doing a deep dive over on the podcast with bestie Freya to kind of just go over everything, all of our initial thoughts, our experiences, and kind of a further character breakdown of this book. So we're not going to dwell on this one too long in this wrap up because I feel like I have been yapping about this book just like every single day for this past month, but like very, very warranted, you know? Like if there was ever a book that deserved this much attention, like it's definitely this book. So this is of course a high fantasy and epic fantasy. It's the first book in the Stormlight Archive, which is a series that is set in Brandon Sanderson's larger Cosmere, and we're set in a war-torn land. We follow like one main battle in this book. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on outside of that, but our main focus is this one war between the Alethi and the Parshendi. We have 3 main POVs, although there are some other perspectives that, you know, we jump to throughout the book, but there are 3 kind of main storylines. And honestly, that's all I'm going to tell you about the plot of this book. It is just one of those like epic fantasies, like very battle heavy, very war heavy. We do have a cool magic system, which I think we are just starting to get into. Like we have just explored the tip of the iceberg with the magic system in the Stormlight Archive. So far it does seem like the mechanics work very similar to the Mistborn magic system, where you ingest metal and then you burn that metal to like alter forces outside of you. We have something similar here where our magic source instead of metal is called stormlight, which is a byproduct of these high storms that happen in this world. And then there are certain few like magical people who can ingest the stormlight and use it to alter gravity, light, whatever forces around them, depending on their calling, I guess, and that's this book. I feel like I was so intimidated by this book length, but going into it, it does not feel intimidating at all, and I think that is definitely a signature of Brandon Sanderson. He tends to explain things to you very plainly, very clearly, so things, although they can get complex, are quite easy to understand. I will say I felt a little bit lost at the very beginning of this book because we just had so many POV jumps and also timeline jumps right at the beginning of this book. So we start off with 2 official prologues, but really 3 prologues, and each prologue is from a different point of view, is from a different like time. I'm pretty sure the first time jump is like 5,000 years, and then there's another like 100-year time jump, and then another 5-year time jump. Like there are a lot of jumps at the beginning of this book, so it definitely took me a little bit of time to settle in, but once I was settled in, like you just blast through this. Like I devoured this 1,258 page book in 5 days, and even for me as someone who like, I know I do typically have quite a fast reading pace, I was impressed at myself. I was very impressed. I was just sitting here like flipping page after page, and the story definitely like blew me away. I have in the past described Brandon Sanderson's writing style as a plain chip. I am not like the biggest fan of his writing in terms of his descriptors of things, and he tends to over-explain things a lot, which I don't like, but I feel like for this series I can put his writing aside and enjoy his characters and his stories and his worlds and just like all of the morals and lessons as well that you get from his books. I absolutely love this one. There was definitely a lot of excitement at the end. A lot of people say the beginning of this book, or like the majority of this first book, is a little bit dull because you're working through all of this world building and character establishment, but to be honest, I am the type of person who loves world building and loves establishing characters, so none of this book felt slow to me. I feel like from the beginning personally, like I don't know, to me the plot was moving very, like, at a very good pace. There's also a wonderful found family in this one that I absolutely adore. Lots of study into philosophy as well, which I found interesting. And I'm really excited for the second book because the second book is also the highest rated book on Goodreads, like in terms of overall average ranking. I can't wait to get to the next one. And I'm so glad that I have finally started my Stormlight journey because, unpopular opinion, I do not love Mistborn as a trilogy. So far, I'm liking this one a lot more. Next up is The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. Definitely very different vibes than The Way of Kings. This one is much more of a romantasy, has a lot more emphasis on the romance plot, and definitely a very simple world and magic system compared to the Stormlight Archive. We are set in the city of Fantôme in this one, and I would describe this as kind of like a Romeo and Juliet meets a Jade City kind of a thing. Like, we kind of have a star-crossed lovers trope in here, and also there are bits of the way the magic works in this world that remind me of the way the Jade City magic system was. And also a little bit of the political clashing reminded me of Jade City. Definitely a very, like, simplified version of what goes on in Jade City because we're not focusing on the politics and stuff, but it seemed pretty close, the initial setup. But basically we have two orders, so kind of like clans. One is the Order of the Cloaks, they are all thieves, and one is the Order of Daggers, they are all assassins. In this world, our magic comes from a substance called jade, which is a plant that is then processed into this like powder that you can ingest, and when you ingest the shade, you basically become a shadow daddy. You have shadow powers. But how the shade is processed and distributed is very regulated by these orders, and there's sort of this little bit of like a resource tussle. Our main character, Seraphine, her mother is a shade smuggler, and at the beginning of the book, Seraphine goes through this very traumatic incident that leaves her alone, and then so she has to go find the Order of the Cloaks and seek sort of refuge there and become a thief. I actually quite enjoyed this as someone who has been getting a little bit tired of copy-paste romantasies. This one did definitely have a lot of like similar elements and tropes that we do see in a typical romantasy, but for some reason I had a lot of fun with this one. I think overall we dove into the magic a little bit more. We definitely had a bit more of a plot, like a real plot where we were trying to uncover things like mysteries and secrets and all of that I enjoyed outside of the romance. And I had a lot of fun with it. I think this book started off very cozy and then became high stakes real fast. It was very easy to read. It flew by quite quickly. But even when this plot became high stakes, we sort of kept a little bit of a cozy vibe. We had some great friendships in here, like found friends, found family a little bit. I thought for a romantasy, this world felt quite like fleshed out compared to some other romantasies that I've read. It's a simple world, it's easy to grasp, but it feels like it's been thought out. So I had a lot of fun, but a few things that did bug me in this one were that Seraphine, our main character, at the beginning of the book starts off as this very like soft character. She just seems like a normal girl. She likes reading like fairy tales. She likes just being cozy with her dog, and then because of these traumatic incidents that happen, she's kind of forced to very quickly change. But I wish we saw more of that change on page versus like it just felt like an immediate 180 switch, and I wanted to see more of her character growth into this more like fierce character that she became. It just seemed very like inconsistent to that character we met in the prologue of this book. So I would have liked seeing that develop a little bit slower, and then also something else I would have liked to see happen a little slower was indeed the romance. I feel like this was an enemies to lovers sort of a vibe, a very cat and mouse kind of dynamic, but in our enemies stage I found there was just too much flirting going on between our main characters, and that is one of my biggest pet peeves I'm realizing about romantasies is when we have these enemies to lovers arc, why are our enemies flirting before they like enter their lover's arc? Like, we should have zero flirting at the beginning, okay? I just feel like that happened a little too quick. But overall, yeah, very fun read. I think if you loved something like Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth, I think you would love this one because we do have, as I mentioned, a bit of that cat and mouse dynamic, and I feel like the world, like the complexity of the fantasy in these two books are kind of on par. This is the start to a duology. The second book comes out in December, and I will be reading the second book when it comes out, but yeah, had some fun with this one. Okay, speaking of Jade City, I also did read Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, the third book in the Greenbone saga. This one was incredible, you guys. Okay, this was amazing. If you, for some reason, have still not heard of the Greenbone saga, this is an amazing trilogy. We're set in Kekon? I've never actually said that. name out loud. But we are set in this country, this fantastical country that is loosely based on Hong Kong. We have two main clans that just get into these like territory, political, like resource wars with each other. We have a jade-based magic system here. In this one, the way it works is if you're wearing jade or like you have jade near you, you can like kind of suck up power from the jade and channel it into like making yourself stronger, shielding yourself, or like slashing things, just like a whole bunch of magical powers. And so jade, of course, is a very precious, valuable resource, and so the two clans tend to fight over how and where the jade is being processed, who owns the jade, how you can distribute it, all of that stuff. And yeah, this is just a trilogy of so much politics, but in the best way. Like very interesting, intricate political systems, like lots of alliances, figuring out like business situations, which like on paper, like on surface, that sounds like maybe it would be a boring read, but like the tension in these books is unreal. The characters in these books are amazing. Some of my favorite characters I've ever read that feel so real, feel so nuanced. Everyone is like a little bit morally gray, but in the best way, not in a forced way. And these books just took me on such a ride. I, in my reading vlog, kind of compared these books to the feeling of when you were watching Game of Thrones for the first time and very unexpected things would happen. Definitely got that feeling from these books. And I do think that these books would make an amazing TV series because we follow so many different POVs. There are so many sort of like clashing things and like tensions and overlapping layers. It's absolutely amazing. This is a story that highlights underdogs. This is a story that shows you such like a wide view of everything. It's a story about loyalty, whether it's clan loyalty, loyalty to your country, loyalty to your family. I absolutely love it. I think the magic in this is also unique in the way that the channeling of the magic, like it's not like you channel jade and you can like breathe fire. It's like you can channel jade and it sort of enhances these like martial arts abilities. Like there's definitely a lot of martial arts influence in this world and story. So yeah, one of my favorite series of all time. It's funny, I actually have not rated a single book in the series 5 stars. I don't think. Everything's been like between a 4.25 to a 4.75, but overall I would say this series as a whole is like a 5-star series, maybe even a 6-star series. Just the way everything fits together, absolutely wonderful. A series that didn't quite work for me though is the Emily Wilde, what is this one called? Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett, the third book in this Emily Wilde series. If you have not heard of this one, it's a cozy fantasy. Our main character is Emily Wilde and she studies fairies. In the first book, she's writing an encyclopedia of fairies. In the second book, she is making a map, and in this one, she is documenting like politics, fairy politics from within fairy courts. I was hoping I would love this one. I honestly have had a mixed experience reading through this entire series, so I kind of knew that this one wouldn't be like a 5-star read going in, but I hoped I would enjoy it. And I did not really enjoy it. I just don't think this writing style is for me. I do like cozy fantasies. There are some cozy fantasies that I absolutely adore, but I think Heather Fawcett's writing style just does not agree with my brain. She has this very like calm, quirky, kind of funny way of writing things. Her writing definitely feels very whimsical, but I think in this story in particular, we got into some like kind of gruesome, violent moments that were quite like horrifying, like very gruesome, very like just gnarly, like ugly, but then the way she writes it, it makes everything seem very lighthearted and everyone's kind of like joking about it, but there's like all this blood and like guts everywhere, and it was just very off-putting to me. I just don't think this is a writing style that I enjoy. I honestly think like as I look back through the series, I was always saying that the second book was my favorite, but reflecting back, I think the first one was actually my favorite because the first one actually had like pure cozy vibes. Like we were in this very cold atmosphere. We had like a lot of chopping wood and like cabins, and that one really encapsulated that like cozy fantasy vibe. But I think these second and third books, we got kind of like into more violence. For me, it does not work with her writing style. In this one in particular, I also thought the plot just felt very like disconnected. We had kind of a one main goal that we were trying to achieve, but the way we were getting there was very side questy, but not in a good way for me. It felt like we were just bumbling along aimlessly, and I didn't love that. I also did not love the romance in this one. I think the connection between them, I don't know, it just felt very weird. Our main protagonist, Emily, there were so many moments when she would look at our love interest and just like shiver in a bad way. Like she'd be like, oh, he looks kind of creepy right now, and it's kind of making me like terrified and like I feel all sorts of wrong inside, but like not in a good way. So I don't know. Lots of things about this one just did not agree with me. I know a lot of people love this series. I do think the writing is very good. It's just not my style. Didn't love. Okay, and the third series that I finished this month was 3 Shattered Souls by Mike Corland, finishing off the Broken Blades trilogy. This is a romantasy series, but does not feel like other romantasy series because we have multi-POV. We follow 6 different POVs, and the premise of the first one is that we have these 5 liars, essentially. Like we have thieves, assassins, poison maidens, just like that kind of a character. All of them get together because they've been hired by a mysterious person to assassinate the king. So as a result, we get 5 people who are not used to trusting other people. They're all used to working by themselves, but they have to work together to pull off this heist, essentially. I would definitely call these books heist fantasy books. I think they are just so much fun, and just the nature of getting all of these liars trying to work together creates such like a fun dynamic to read where you never know who's gonna betray the other. You never know who's keeping a secret, and these books just keep me on my toes the whole way through. The writing in these books, I will say, is not perfect. There are times where the writing feels very clunky. It's not the most like beautiful prose or the most proper sentence structure, but those are things I kind of overlook in these books because the plot is so much fun. In this one, we do have a bit of a different dynamic because in the first one, our team was kind of like meeting each other and getting to know each other. In the second one, we were just kind of dealing with the aftermath of what happened in the first one. And then in this one, we have a very fractured team where everyone's like been broken down. They've all kind of like grown to appreciate each other and like love each other in ways, but with all the betrayals and everything that's happened in the past few books, like they feel very damaged. But it is so much fun to read. These books are just so overdramatic in the best way. I will say this book was probably the slowest moving out of the 3, but that was kind of a good thing because in the first 2 books, there were times where I felt a little bit of whiplash because things were moving so quick. I liked how we took a little bit more time in this third one to just like slow down and let things settle like in certain moments. If you love found family, if you love heist books, if you love fast moving plots, definitely pick this one up. I describe this one as like a very dramatic Asian fantasy meets like a CW show. And there definitely were little hints at the end of this book that pointed towards a potential spin-off series. So I'm very excited about that. I can't wait for Mike Corland to announce what she has in store for us. That is 3 Shattered Souls. Okay, those are all the fantasies. My one sci-fi that I read was Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I had such high hopes going into this one, and I didn't hate it. I did not hate it, I just thought I would love it more than I did. So we are set on Mars. Our people in this world have been split into different colors of factions. So we have red, which is the lowest on the tier, we have gold, which is the highest, and we have all these colors mixed in throughout. Reds have actually been sent to Mars as like kind of the first faction to help mine these resources to prepare the planet to be like human worthy, because Earth has become overpopulated. We are needing to move people over to Mars, and so the Reds are there to like get everything prepared. So we start off in this little mining faction where Darrow is working, and because of certain very dramatic things that happen at the beginning of this book, very traumatic things that happen at the beginning of this book, Darrow finds himself in a situation where he has to disguise as a gold and infiltrate this like institute where all of like the top gold people study. So that's our main plot, and on paper I should have loved this book. We have a very dystopian setting, we have lots of traumatic things happening, which I love reading for whatever reason, and we have like an infiltrating an academy trope, and I love academy settings. It is literally like my favorite trope to read. But I think like I got so excited when we got to the academy, and we didn't even get that much academy in this book, which was odd. The academy portion of this book really just felt like a Hunger Games on Mars. It was just like one big trial where we were hosting this battle kind of a thing, and it really felt like Hunger Games, which I also found very interesting because this is a sci-fi book, and I'm slowly starting to get more into the sci-fi genre, but in terms of plot structure, this felt very much like a fantasy. Even the world, like I know we're set on Mars, we do have some technology and stuff. A lot of this environment, especially when we got into the trial portion of this book, really just felt like a dystopian fantasy. I personally did not even enjoy reading about the trial. I liked it at first, but the trial was so long, and a lot of it I personally feel was repetition of the same thing. It was like, now we'll go after that house, or like those people, and then it was like, okay, now we'll go over that house, now we'll defeat that house, and a lot of it just felt like we were doing the same thing over and over again, but making our way through the houses, and it just did not feel very interesting for me to read after the first few like little battles or whatever. I also really highly disliked the main character, Darrow. There were some side characters like Severo, absolutely loved him, that I honestly would have preferred following over Darrow as the main protagonist. I feel like Darrow was just so full of it, so full of himself. He just thought he was like the best thing that was ever created. And I do understand that was kind of a product of the world, and he was forced in a way to like think this way, but it was just so frustrating for me to follow, and it was hard for me to root for him. But anyways, I did not absolutely love this one. I think the world and setup is interesting enough for me to go on to the second and third books, and I do know a lot of you have told me that this first book is not the best in the series. Like, this series is better known for the second and third books, which apparently like are miles better than this first one, so I'm hoping that's the case, because yeah, I will be jumping into the next books, but this one was not my favorite as its own entity. Okay, let's get into some romances. Let's change up the vibe. So for the two romances I read, the first one was The Passion Project by London Sperry. This was actually the first book I read this month, so it's been a little while. We follow a romance in New York City in this one. Our main character, Bennett, is very miserable. She has no goals, she has no direction in life. She's also grieving the loss of her first love. At the beginning of the book, she's kind of set herself up on this date with the encouragement of her best friend, but she ends up actually standing this guy up. His name is Henry, and in a weird turn of events, she actually ends up seeing him later that night, but this was like after the date, like she had already stood him up. When they meet, she confesses to him that she's just not ready to date. She's like, you know what, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me, I'm just not ready for this. I'm sure you're a nice guy. And Henry listens, and I don't know, they just sort of decide to become friends instead, and Henry pitches this idea. He wants to be her friend, he wants to help her find her passion in life again. So thus, we have the Passion Project. This felt like Emily Henry meets Cara Bastone. We just have a story here that follows a lot more than just the romance. I honestly do think in this book we had more emphasis on the storyline with Bennett overcoming her grief over the romance itself. Like, most of this book was about Bennett and her grief. And I would honestly call the romance in this like almost more of just a subplot, because yeah, we had a lot of focus on the depression, on Bennett's anxiety, and how that affected her day-to-day life, which I found to be depicted very well. But because of that, in a sense, Bennett was a little bit frustrating to read as your protagonist, and you understand why she's going through these things. So I'm not even sure if this is a pro or a con, but it was frustrating to see some of Bennett's choices and to see her just like, I don't know, rejecting things over and over and over again, and kind of self-sabotaging herself in many ways. But it did go with the theme of the story and what she was going for, so it definitely made sense. I will also say Henry, I feel like, felt like a very unrealistic character, especially at the beginning of the book, in the sense that he was just so eager immediately to help a stranger and be like, yeah, I'm gonna help you find your passion again. It just felt like a little too convenient for me, the way stuff like that happens. And I actually found that to be very similar to how I felt about, what was that Cara Bastone book? It's behind me. Promise Me Sunshine. That's the one. It felt very similar to Promise Me Sunshine, where the initial setup of like the male character being like, yes, I will just help you. I found that to happen too quickly. But overall, I did really enjoy this read. I think it was an amazing debut by London Sperry. We'll definitely read more from her. Again, her writing style feels very Emily Henry and Cara Bastone. And yeah, while there were moments where I just felt so frustrated while reading this one, it felt realistic at the same time. I would definitely recommend this one, but definitely go into it not expecting just like a light fluffy romance. Go into it expecting more of like a grief journey. And our second romance that I read was the second Bridgerton book, The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. I did not love the first book in this Bridgerton series, and the second book was better, but I still enjoy the TV series a lot more. But this one, if you're not familiar, is the second book in the Bridgerton series, which is a Regency era romance where each book follows a different sibling in this Bridgerton family. So this one is Anthony's story, and in this book he has decided he's gonna marry this year. He doesn't know who he's gonna marry, but he's just determined. Like, he's very driven by his duties because his father passed away when he and his siblings were young, so he's kind of stepped into this father role, like the head of the household role, very early on in life, and he's always felt a duty to his family. So he wants to find just like a very practical option for his wife, and he's found one. He's like, yep, she's gonna be the one. I don't love her. I'm never gonna love her, but I'm gonna marry her. But then he meets her sister, and her sister is like, she just annoys him. She frustrates him. She drives him mad, but he can't keep his mind off of her, and he also can't keep his eyes off of her. So we follow the story where, you know, he's supposed to be marrying the younger sister, but then the older sister just keeps grabbing his attention. I am, with the first book and this one, just like very surprised at how different the books are from the show. Our initial setup is always very similar, like the main premise of the plot, but in the show we get a lot more side plots and things happening with other characters, where in the books, like, we are really focusing just on Anthony in this book, and in the first one we were focusing really just on Daphne. In the show, I can definitely see why they've added more kind of jumps and side stories and different POVs to keep the show more interesting as it moves. But there are a lot of plot changes, even like with like Anthony's main storyline in this one. I would say the first half maybe feels kind of similar in vibes, but the second half completely veers off course in terms of like the show plot versus the book plot. And I can see why they did what they did with the show. Like, it's definitely a lot more exciting. It's more sensational. We add a lot more like tension and dramatics and theatrics and everything, where the books are more, I guess, more character driven almost. Like, we focus a little bit more on the development of characters. I like show Anthony more than book Anthony, which, no, you know what? In the first book, in Daphne's book, I enjoyed book Anthony more than show Anthony. So as a brother, I enjoy Anthony in the books better, but as a love interest or as a protagonist, I definitely enjoyed show Anthony more than book Anthony. He was very like full of himself in this one. And his views on like women and stuff like were very frustrating to read, but I can also like, I understand that's also just how the times were in the Regency era. Like, the way he thought was the way every man thought, and that was how they grew up. But yeah, as a protagonist, very, very difficult to be in his head. There are some very fun moments in this book. I always love when I see more of the sibling dynamics in these Bridgerton books. I think they are written very funny, and I like the light-hearted moments in these books more than the romantic tension, I would say. So yeah, I'm still not convinced on these Bridgerton books. I still would just say to watch the show. The show is definitely better, but I'm still gonna go on because I do own 2 more Bridgerton books, so we'll read 4 of them, and we'll see like by the end if I feel compelled to get the second batch of the books, so like the other 4 books. We'll see. Maybe the 3rd and 4th books will convert me. All right, our Fable Book Club book for this month was The Compound by Ashlyn Rawle, which was, this received such mixed reviews on the Fable, and also is receiving very mixed reviews like outside of our book club, like in the world in general, which I can definitely see, but I am on the side of, you know, the very rare few people who actually really, really enjoyed this book. Not a perfect book by any means. I definitely saw things that I felt like I wanted to get deeper into, but as a whole, I thought this book really like sparked my mind, made me think about things. It's one of those books that like doesn't give you that much on page, but just gives you a basis to think about, like gives you a conversation starter, like even if that conversation is just in your mind with yourself. But I enjoyed it. So this is a book. I was describing it as a thriller before I read it, but after I read it, I would definitely say it's not a thriller. It's more of a dystopian fiction, just a commentary on the world. But we are set on a remote desert compound where a reality show is filmed. So our main character Lily arrives and slowly meets the other contestants of the show. We have 10 females, 10 males, and we kind of have this like Love Island kind of a show where to stay on the show, like you need a man to join you in bed, which is all sorts of uncomfortable, but like you basically need a guy to pick you and like to like sleep in a bed together to stay on the show through till the morning. And on this reality show, we also have these little screens kind of all around the house that will give you tasks to do. And when you do the tasks, you will get prizes. And these prizes can range from anything to like necessity items like food, wood to make a door, and then we can go over to like luxury, like for fun gifts like clothing and like shoes and whatever, like stuff like that. This book has a very detached writing style, which I usually don't really get along with, but I found really worked well in this setting. It set this very eerie, creepy vibe. From the very beginning, you were like, what the heck is going on? This feels so strange. I feel so detached from the entire thing, but it felt very cool. And for the rest of this book, I think a lot of people dislike this book because it was not very exciting. Like there was not that much that happened in the plot. It was not very thrilling. I think this book has been marketed as like a thriller, and it's definitely not that. It's sort of like a reality show if it was not edited. That is really what you're seeing. And I think a lot of people expected like that really fast-paced, high-energy reality show drama, but you're really seeing the slower, like unedited moments of this reality show, and I think probably reflects reality TV more accurately than like reality TV shows actually do, like the polished version of them, if that makes sense. We also had very unlikable characters, especially our protagonist Lily was very difficult to like. She was frustrating to read, but I think in a book like this, it worked for me because you're not really supposed to be rooting for her. That's not the point of the book. The point of the book is you're supposed to be just looking at the social commentary of everything, of how society is these days, of overconsumption, of the greed of people, of the scary world, the scary dystopian world that we could so easily fall into. So I didn't dislike that our main character was very boring, very basic, but I will say I feel like this book would kind of be interesting as a multi-POV. If you saw kind of like how the different characters were accepting this reality show reality and seeing their thoughts and how they were processing everything, I think that would have made this book feel more rich. And as I mentioned, like this book is very much a conversational starter. I think this book works very well as a book club book where you can have lots of discussion. I do think that the book itself could have been longer and could have dove more into these topics. I can definitely see similarities between this book and I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Kind of very similar concepts. In both, we're set in these dystopian worlds. In both, we don't get very much explanation as to like how we got here. We don't get explanation to like the actual dystopian world outside of our little limited environment and view we're in, but it just kind of like starts conversations. That was The Compound. I really enjoyed it. It definitely made me think, but I know this book has a lot of mixed reviews. Next up is Golden Girl by Ellen Hilderbrand. I had to pick up this book before the cold weather and fall weather sets in because Ellen Hilderbrand is obviously like a summer read author. And this one really, really surprised me because when I pick up an Ellen Hilderbrand, I always expect like a general fiction, a summer fun read with either a focus on just like friendships or romance or mystery. But this one had a very fun paranormal magical realism twist in it. So we follow our main character Vivi, who actually gets hit by a car on her morning run, and she actually passes away at the beginning of the book. She then she gets matched to this sort of spirit guide who is there to help her cross over, and she is given a 75-day window where she can look down on the world to see how people and things are getting along without her. And also she gets 3 nudges to influence things that happen on Earth if she just wants to like nudge something like, oh, I want this to happen or I want this to happen. She can sort of like nudge things 3 times during her 75 days. So we just follow that. We just follow her as she like looks down on Earth, sees like her kids and how they're getting along without her, sees her friends, her like boyfriend, her ex-husband, just like sees all this stuff happening. She definitely starts like witnessing these very messy things that are happening behind closed doors. We definitely have a lot of like drama and toxicity and stuff that gets revealed, but this was a really fun read for me. I loved the concept. I think it was just so creative and so much fun. And yeah, just messy. I also, like, as I was reading this, was thinking like Ellen Hilderbrand kind of weirdly self-inserted her as the main character in this book who passes away in the car accident in the weirdest way, because the main character Vivi, she was actually like a very popular author who wrote books set on Nantucket. There were some funny similarities between Ellen and Vivi, and I don't know like how far those similarities like go, but definitely in the sense that both of them were writers who both write Nantucket books was interesting to me. I think the progression of this book was also unexpected for me. As I was reading, I thought we were going to kind of get into this like, oh, who's gonna win, who's gonna lose kind of situation with all the mess and drama that was happening. But at the end, I realized this book, it's not about that. It's not about who wins in life, who loses in life. It was more just about like the letting go process, not clinging on to things. And on one hand, it was like, it made me feel nice and good and whatever at the end, but also I was like, ooh, I wish we resolved those things. Like just kind of like that side of me that's like, ooh, I need things to be like completely resolved. I need people to get revenge on the people who have wronged them. The overall feeling of this book was interesting, but yeah, I liked it. We definitely got the summer vibes in this one. We definitely followed lots of imperfect characters, which Ellen, I think, is known for. I think she does very well. And this book gave me a peaceful feeling while reading it, but not a dull feeling. Like I didn't feel bored while reading it, but things sort of happen slowly in this one. I don't really want to make this comparison because they are night and day books, but parts of this felt a little bit like Beartown, a tiny bit, where we see this bird's eye view of like how one incident affects all these different people. And that's where the similarities end. Like this did not feel like Beartown at all, other than that one element where we're seeing like so many people being affected by this one thing that happens. Enjoyed this one, would recommend in the summer season. A little fun Ellen Hildebrand with a paranormal twist. Who would have thunk? All right, and the last book I read this month was also something a little different to what I usually read, but I read this literary fiction, Maggie or Man and a Woman Walk into a Bar by Katie Yee. Such a long title on this one, but we follow a woman. Do we know her name? No, we never learned her name. It's one of those. It's like another Ministry of Time thing where we never learn her name. But we follow a woman who walks into a restaurant with her husband, and over dinner, he tells her that he's been having an affair and he's basically, you know, he's gonna leave her. He's fallen out of love. And a short while afterwards, our main character walks into an examination room, like a doctor's office, and gets diagnosed with breast cancer. So she is going through these two very rough patches in her life. And then this book is just sort of a jumble of thoughts, really. It's just a stream of consciousness as she processes these two things happening in tandem. I didn't really love this book, but to get into my thoughts about it, I thought this book felt like a diary. Like there were actually moments in this book where I was reading it and I was convinced that this book is a memoir, like a nonfiction, just Katie Yee telling us about her experiences. I double checked, it is a fiction, but while reading it, it feels like a memoir. It feels like you're just reading someone's diary. There's not much that happens plot-wise in this one, which I think I wanted to see more of. We just sort of see the general movements, the general events that happen after these things. So like slow things like your husband starts like moving out and taking stuff with him, like figuring out who's gonna get the kids and when, going through the processes of a divorce, and then with the breast cancer thing, like just going to doctors' offices, like getting treatments and recovering and stuff like that. So like the plot, there's not much that happens. It's all very straightforward stuff that you would expect. But this book is just, I don't know, it's just more of just her inner thoughts. And we go off on a lot of these little tangents and explore kind of like Chinese mythology also in these like random ways. It was an odd read for me. I think this book felt very calm for a divorce book. The writing in this felt very serene for the most part. It was filled with these sorts of like fun facts and seemingly random insights into life, which I think I enjoyed at the beginning of the book, like how flowery the thoughts felt. But like as we were getting deeper into the book, I got sick of it. I was like, I love this writing. I love how like we're thinking of all these random things that pop up in this character's head, but I want something to happen. I wanted her to like do something about it, but she never did anything about it. She just sort of let stuff happen to her. And this book was just really about her processing as like all of these things were coming at her. I don't know. I wanted more emotions versus thoughts in this one. We got a lot of thoughts, but I wanted raw emotion. But that was this one. I think I will, like, if Katie Yee comes out with another book, I think I will still give it a try because I did really like her style of writing, but I just wanted more like stuff to happen. But that being said, those are the 11 books that I read in August. So let's get these back onto the shelves. there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what your top read was in August. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!